This year we focused on what impact can we have on students and their learning, and how can we do that by feeding data back to students that might in particular help their sense of self-efficacy, and how can we measure that? This project came out of an experience from a couple of years ago where we were receiving the first analytics that we received, which were really just statistics, where it was hits per student per course that was being fed back to courses in the college. That just counts bums on seats, really.
So the first step in the project has been looking at how to get the data together. It was really complicated, much more so than I thought. So we're getting data coming out of Blackboard. We're also pulling data out of a number of other sources. So we had to process that. We also had to combine it. So data from one source wasn't matching up neatly with data from another source. So there's a lot of things we had to do to get that into a state that we could actually combine the data together.
Similar data was being described with different names in different places, and it was just very messy and technical to get out. And we couldn't really design a student experience around that because there was just so much effort going into it, all of it. It's a bit like trying to climb Mount Fuji. In Japan, there's this saying that they have: you're mad if you don't climb Mount Fuji once, but if you climb Mount Fuji twice, you're totally stupid, because it's just such a hard thing to do. It's beautiful, but you wouldn't want to do it again.
The learning and teaching is very interactive. So since 2012, I've got the data of the students' performance. So what I can do is I can actually show the students the result of the previous years. I can show them that, from week 1 to week 6, this is how the previous cohort performed. And I show them how they are performing. The week after, they could do something better and they could beat the previous years. I've seen instances that they started clapping, for example, just instantly. They were happy that they could beat 2015 or 2014 and so on.
And so with Ehsan's class, I had to go to the lectures and to talk to the students. So I was kind of like the face of the project for the students. A big part of the project was trying to get ideas from the students and what they thought about the reports they received. So we used a well-developed self-efficacy scale and self-reflection scale, and we used that at the start and then at the end of the semester to see if there's any changes there.
How could we organise that and so that students could understand their data?
Initially we tried to put it all into one graph, and it just had no meaning whatsoever. It was really complex to understand.
So it started off as something that would be emailed to them, but after a while people had suggestions about, what if we try to make this more interactive?
It was really important with the data that we wanted to present it in a way that was visually understandable at first glance.
My involvement in the project has been mostly giving visual advice when it comes to representing the graphs. Just basics of visuals, but can really make a difference when you're trying to get information across. So making sure that the fonts are a good size for legibility, colours for accessibility as well, that's very important, contrast as well, so it's easy to read and easy on the eye as well.
My name's Oliver Clark. I'm a student here at RMIT. I study psychology, and I guess my involvement was providing feedback and offering my opinion on how to engage students. A piece of advice I gave was that students won't look for data or their results unless it's presented right in front of them.
We wanted it in their face so that they could get it at the time that was being sent out.
I've been used to just looking at a website page with my results in it, and then that's it. So if I see something that actually has graphs in it that would show me my progress, that would try to compare my performance, it's something that I would really appreciate because it gives me a deeper insight into my performance.
We started to then have a lot of information, and what we needed to then do was design how we gave it to students.
And this was part of our design process as well. So we put all our reports up in a central area. We got feedback from a number of people, just anybody who had nothing to do with the projects, to make sure that made sense to anybody. We wanted to make sure that you could just look at it and understand it straight away.
We set up an agile methodology that separated out the admin that we were doing from the design experience for students, so that we were able to continue to improve and tailor what we were doing and feed back into the process what we were learning, so that students were getting gradual improvements throughout the second half of the year in the information they were getting. The other thing is we've been looking at XAPI.
So XAPI it's an initiative that's designed to enable data about learning to be captured from a variety of interactions that occur on lots of different platforms and spaces.
So for example, where you've got two learning management systems side by side, you might want to be able to compare what students are doing in one system with what another group of students or the same group of students are doing in another system. So you can describe apples for apples with apples.
Previously, we've only been able to capture data from within a learning management system, but learning happens in lots of places. And so the idea behind XAPI is that you can capture all of this data from different places around the web and pull them into a central location. So it's broadening the capture of data to be much wider than what was previously available.
I was asked to explore the possibility of integrating the XAPI Learning Analytics data standard into the Blackboard learning management system and also into the Google Apps framework. So I dug into the documentation, figured out what the whole thing was about, just to get an idea of how it could fit into the Blackboard LMS and the Google Apps Script framework. For instance, there was a Google form and we wanted to see if when a student submitted a Google form, we could send out an XAPI statement, and that statement would record that they completed that form, be it a test or be it a survey. And I just put some JavaScript code into that learning content in the back end. And then as soon as that student engaged with that content, we see if we could interact with XAPI at the same time. I think the most important thing for me was the idea of finding out whether the students were engaging with the content that was provided by the university or that they were going out to the big wide world of the web and learning in other ways. So you have YouTube, you have Wikipedia, and I think using these data tools like XAPI, we have the potential to understand whether students are learning with RMIT's content, whether it's the most relevant thing to them, or whether they're going out there to learn in other ways, maybe connecting with other students across the globe. So yeah, that understanding of modern educational practices of their students is an important thing, I think, for data platforms in the future.
By the end of the year, we were able to get a much better measure of self-efficacy, and also, while it wasn't still entirely perfect, they did feel that they were getting something out of being fed back their data.
And I think that one of the things for the future that we want to do is to be able to kind of really look at ways in which we can use the data reports to help students to help them engage with it a bit more, to help them to kind of get the information and to do more things with it. So I think that's an important thing for the future.
You know, every semester we are using a similar structure. I need to tweak it and make it better. Using the result of a project like this, I can make informed decisions. I can check the result, I can see if it worked, and if it didn't, because I've got the hard results, I just change it, I do something else. So having that evidence for the teacher, I think is extremely important and useful using the outcome of this project.
When you think about it, like not all people perceive something in the same way. So some people might appreciate like a sort of line graph or like a bar graph, but others may find it less easier to interpret. So it's trying to find out what's the best way to present those information